On the question.
Mr. President,
Alderman Mills.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the administration for their time and efforts in preparing the proposed 2018 City of Kingston budget. I must state that I do have concerns of how the budget process was handled by the current Common Council. I learned years ago from veteran council members that we do not accept the status quo, that we need to review, recommend, and make applicable changes that are in the best interest of the city. In my opinion, this did not happen this year. Motions were quick to accept the budget as is, and rather than talking through this process. I was told by Alderman Coop, he voiced to me, and it was quoted also in the paper, that this was a great budget as is, and we should not micromanage what has been prepared. Micromanage is defined as control every part, however small, of an enterprise or activity. The council was not controlling every part of the budget. Rather, the intent was to properly review and vet what had been presented, make changes as necessary, and represent the taxpayers and our constituents that elected this council to oversee the city dollars. Each and every council member needs to fully understand the budget process, attend budget meetings, and educate themselves if there is any question as to what the process is. Take a look at the county legislator. Recently, the Ways and Means Committee reviewed the county proposed budget, and the committee made a series of amendments, exactly what should occur during a budget process review, and make changes if and where they are applicable. Please note, it has been stated often by the administration that we need to be mindful of our financial state of the city, and I offer some highlights of our city budget, which also correlate to some of the resolutions that we just passed this evening. The one and only change that was made to this budget was the reduction of purchasing 10 laptops for $10,000 for the Common Council. However, it was removed from the budget, but the money was placed in contingency, which I can only assume, or one can assume, they will be purchased. Speaking of contingency, we need to understand what the contingency account purpose is and its usefulness. I'm going to speak to resolution number 224, why it wasn't part of the budget. The police vehicles were at one point. I strongly believe it is not intended to be used to purchase a fleet of vehicles for various departments to avoid bonding for vehicle purchases. The police department has had a process in place for years that included a fleet of vehicles in the capital plan. This year, when asked why, the council was advised, we don't need vehicles this year. This response was perplexing to me, and thrust presented at the next finance meeting was the use of contingency money to purchase the fleet. This process was sneaky, and there was no open government or transparency applied here. The incoming council and current members of the council that will still remain should be watchful that 3 unresolved contracts are outstanding, and monies have been appropriated for this. However, spending down a contingency balance for non-emergent items that will resurface in a year is not what the purpose is. With a withdrawal of $934,000 from the city funds, the tax levy remains flat. Although, without this withdrawal, it would not. These are still taxpayers' dollars, as the tax levy is the total amount of money to be raised by the city through taxes. The proposed positions, the environmental asset manager. While I've been advocating for asset management to be put in place, this position does not truly represent what the city needs, nor what was suggested by asset management to evaluate all infrastructure needs of the city. This position will be partially funded by a grant, thus the position name of an environmental asset manager, whose goal is to track energy use and energy reduction goals established by the Climate Action Plan in 2012. It will only recognize the design and development of a fleet management program to update the existing 2010 greenhouse gas emissions inventory. The mayor's message indicated that it would be dedicated to tracking and managing all the city fleet and equipment in one central place. The purpose is to have someone manage all the city assets, not only the GHG, as indicated. The capital plan also includes purchases of technology pieces of equipment. We should better maintain what each department has, and the possibility of sharing technology services between departments. This is something that should be part of the city's asset management initiative. Boards and commissions. These are filled by volunteers that dedicate their time to the good of the city. To pick and choose which are paid or unpaid, and to include paid board and commission leads for Live Well Kingston and the Arts Commission are expenditures the city does not need to incur. Regardless if a grant will partially or fully fund a position, the what if of the future lies ahead and how it will be funded then. Proactive thought processes are a must. A mayoral secretary increase is unnecessary. An increase was received in January of this year. Just because more work is assigned or the salary does not meet the standard or grade level of someone that has been there many years does not mean a raise is imperative. Do other city employees receive a raise for increased responsibilities at all times? I think not. There are many outstanding issues that we spoke of currently and in the past that should have been given consideration into the capital plan and were not. For example, security cameras for the centers, Hodge, Rondout, and Andy Murphy Center. This was requested during the CDBG process and declined. It was noted that it would be given consideration during the budget process. I do not see it is included, nor was any inquiry made to discuss the possibility to include. Correction of the infrastructure to include, but is not limited to. East Chester Street stormwater issues have been around for years, and I have inquired my 6 years of tenure in this position. But we were quick to fix Clifton Avenue as a result of it being identified of a potential sale of the Alms House, and it was immediately corrected. The roundabout, which we just spoke of with a resolution number 239 and 240, DOT regulates and advises. We need to have a voice and not necessarily accept what DOT says. Vetting and discussing can sometimes prove better results, and we should work with DOT rather than accepting only their opinion. The water pipes in our city-owned facilities. These should have been fixed years ago. We all know that we have the best drinking water. Why do you think Niagara came here? Why should we continue to pay Binney Water, a bottling company, to provide water rather than use the monies to correct the current problem and reduce that expenditure? As I close, I am hopeful that the newly elected council can only move forward to provide for our City of Kingston residents and not only the One Kingston movement. All should be open to ideas and not only accept the status quo. Obviously, I will be a no vote this evening. Thank you.
Anyone else on the question? Alderman Brown.
Well, Alderman Mills, you pretty much covered everything I was going to say very eloquently. And those are the same concerns I have going back to the contingency fund. That was the one that raised the red flag for me. Just for example, we mentioned, you know what, if this is a bad snowstorm this year and we're doing the off-site, on-street, off-on-the-side parking, the superintendent had concerns it might be overtime costs. The contingency fund would where the overtime costs for salaries would come from. You can't bond for that. So you need to have these things in place for when this happens. And just because you have it doesn't mean you have to spend it. I thought maybe a good idea that maybe we think about lowering taxes rather than keep doing status quo. That might be something we used to strive for. I remember even Mr. Carey. That was our buzzword, strive. We're going to strive to reduce taxes. Strive to increase services, do more with less. So I will also be a no vote, and like I said, Alderman Mills said that very eloquently. Thank you.
Anyone else on the question, on the budget? Hearing no one else, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
The resolution is adopted 7-2. We now move on to resolution number 244.